Christmas, from one parent to another, from one human being to another, I am putting this message out to say, I hope if you have the time to perhaps do some fundraising, or perhaps you want to share one of my Christmas gifts with these children this year, or perhaps you yourself are looking for a way to share some joy in a place where it's needed, then all the information about our Christmas wish and all the information about our family is on the website. And as a dad, I really hope that I can bring the best possible Christmas to my children. You have already brought them the best possible year. They have had everything they need because of you guys, and an amazing God that we pray to. And to be able to sit here and say that they have gone with every meal they need and every access to medical care they have needed is a miracle unto itself. But if I can give them a little more magic at a certain time of the year, just as we have one birthday party every month of the year for the children born in that month, then I want to do so, because they deserve it, because they've came from places that many children should have never seen or come from. And I love them all dearly, and I want the very best for them. I wish to share into the importance of what I am going to call the 100 functions of Christ. It is something that has been sitting with me as a message for quite some time to try and communicate with you. This week, due to a profoundly supernatural sequence of events, I find it the perfect time to be able to explain this, to be able to show what is meant by this system of the 100 functions of Christ, and how you and every human who hears my words can unlock that space where the 100 functions of Christ are born inside the organism that you are, and the supernatural life begins. This is a space where you can be led to, a connection point where you can root yourself into a certain space within inside our time, space and reality matrix, and from there begin to unlock those functions. And that unlocking is automatic. It is not a process of the mind. Once you dock your consciousness and your awareness into this space that I am trying to lead people to, the space that has built through the organism has not built anything. It has been guided by that space and the unlocking, slowly but surely, of these functions. To reflect what I am saying, to reflect that topic with you, let me say this. We, it is said, are most likely not in base reality. A Christian would agree this is no longer base reality, it is the fallen world. Another terminology to say it's not original anymore. There is something of a non-base reality element, of a interference with the original reality, and we are dwelling within there. The vessel is also a non-base reality vessel, a fallen vessel, as Christianity points at it with its dated language. In modern terminology, can we happily say non-base reality is potentially that we could hack the reality around us using extreme technology, intelligence and analysis, and begin to mimic or project into the base reality of life another layer of reality, as we are starting to do with AI worlds and computer worlds and so on and so forth. Likewise, with non-base reality, sentient life, is that going to be something that's achievable and attainable? The mind must expand into places unknown to conceive of these concepts. Are, in short, the humans that we are, a altered species genetically by an external sentient life force, species, set of beings, the fallen ones? And let me bring you to our human story today to walk you gently towards the evidence that this is most likely the scenario where we are, and is not a terrible thing. It's not the end of the world. It just means that we have now an opportunity to reconnect deep within the non-base reality, deep within the non-base beings that we are, to the living God, and begin to activate what are the 100 functions of Christ, and restore ourselves to our full supernatural power against the odds, against the oppression or the genetic affliction that the body has faced, against the oppression of the reality that has allowed for unfavorable energies and program codes to maneuver within it. We are building at present cyborgs, and we are building metal skeletons. We are having sheet metal skin or plastic skin. Their nervous systems are wires. Their mind, their thinking is either AI or it's pre-programmed program codes within inside a hard drive and a CPU. In other words, using the raw materials of the earth on which we are dwelling, we are mimicking Creator. We are creating our own life forces. Now, we stand at a precipice where we say, well, these are artificially intelligent beings, and this means that they can only do what humans have already done. They can only achieve and create based on the creative base that humans have created from. But the beautiful symphonies that have been written, the wondrous artworks that have been created, the phenomenal feats of engineering and medicine that have been born from humanity, the inspiration for these phenomena to be born are dwelling from where? Do we say it simply arose from human intelligence and thinking? The experience of this organism is no. The inspiration to give birth to the village, for example, did not come from study or thinking. It came from a dream. And therefore, I know from hearing about artists, reading about various things like composers, that the symphonies that came forward from them were coming from a connection to something deeper than thinking, something beyond human intelligence. It was coming from a birthplace of what I am going to name the sacred. The sacred you can point at with whatever you like, or you can say the dimension of Christ, the origin of all creation. Therefore, humanity is accessing a deep space of infinite potential when it comes to creativity. And that's why things like a symphony, as an example of great beauty, a composition of great beauty, can be born through the human organism. If, however, the human organism loses connection to that deep, sacred, Christic dimension, where all potentialities of beauty can be accessed and brought forward, and unfortunately, it would appear all potentialities of malice can also be accessed from certain dimensions. If humanity loses that original connection to its soul, will these symphonies of great beauty ever be born that change humanity and their perspective of the world, that reduce a man to tears? Will they ever be born, or will they become repetitive, as we are only able to create based on what we have already heard, and no longer does original creation come forth through the being? If, therefore, we continue on the avenue of creating cyborgs, creating androids, creating these servants to humanity, which we are creating, which Tesla are building at the moment, and so on. If we continue to walk that road and we become dependent on them and on their artificial intelligence, how long before we wander down the road where we atrophy our own connection to that space where beautiful compositions and symphonies of a divine nature are born through the human organism? How long before the only compositions that can be born are born of a mixture of what has already been pre-created, and therefore we begin to enter a repetitive cycle of creation? Original, inspired creation is not coming forward. What if we begin to see that in our prolonged state, our artificially intelligent brothers that we have created, and if they have artificial general intelligence brothers we have created, they are also limited by the examination of time, space and matter, and they are as yet not interdimensionally functioning, and as such the divine origin of inspiration from our Creator is not accessible by they also. Could we reach a point where we solve the problem by technologically acknowledging another dimension in which we have witnessed there is an energy, and that energy is soul, and that energy is the soul awareness that I reference, that can animate the life beyond thought, that can speak through the organism without the entanglement of the identities of the world and what thought is overlaid to box and calculate and create a structure that functions. That space, what if technologically we work out how to reach into the Christic dimension where all souls and children of God are born, and bring it into our cyborg, bring it into our artificially intelligent robots? Our connection, long gone due to the way we have sought outside of ourselves analysis and dissection of our Creator over unity with our Creator. We now technologically try to solve the problem of our lack of unity and connection with Creator by using technology to grab soul essence, grab soul awareness from the dimension of Christ with interdimensional tech. And instead of having an AI brain in our androids, instead of having a CPU and a program in our androids, we now have a way to contain a spark of access to original creation, a soul within inside the androids that we have built. How long before the species we are, hundreds of thousands of years down the line, recognize that using metal and wires is primitive, and it makes no sense to have these factory lines using these finite resources, and we say it's better if we grow organic structures such as bone to build our cyborgs on. It's better that we build and grow organic nerves instead of wires. It's better that they have a biological CPU, a biological space within them to contain the soul and also any programs we want to put within them. How long? For China are already growing human skin over metal robotic hands. How long before we reach the point where we say better to organically grow our own bio-cyborgs, biological in nature? How long before we can create miniature worlds where we say, well, to grow them it's easier to have a sun that is burning and a planet which has a setup and a system of growth so that they can reproduce and recreate themselves, these creations of ours? How long before we can mimic Creator in that manner? And if the fallen angels are to be believed upon, which they are present in the human story, and they are known by us who have seen, not believed. If for eons they have pursued technology, what if you are such an android as that? And this is not doom and gloom. This is not a terror or a horror story. This is a gift. For we have reached a time where we can begin to look, due to our technological progression and position, and say, for those of us who are free from the enslavement that has been offered by the technology, by the debauchery of pornography, by the external pleasures of the world, and have managed to stay connected to the inner soul awareness that has been brought into the organism, we are able to look and say, hold on a moment. We may not be in base reality, we may not be a base species, but our creators have a problem. Our creators being these fallen, false creator being gods, the fallen angels, the satanic, as we would label them. The causality of the fallen species and the fallen world. We have something they do not. We have access to original divine inspiration. Now, if humanity were to do it with a cyborg, and we need to bring that soul essence into that cyborg. Imagine this scenario. For the soul to enter the cyborg, all 100 functions of Christ must be switched on. They must be switched on, otherwise the soul cannot be received into that organism, into that android that we have created, that cyborg. The soul enters the cyborg, finds itself at home within it, and as the cyborg grows, one by one, the 100 functions of Christ are switched off until we reach a point of 15 or 20 functions. And now the soul is in the organism. It has been received by the cyborg, that, let's say, the one humanity has created, where we've put in a metal cyborg the soul awareness through interdimensional tech. We've brought a soul into a robot. And now we switch off all of these functions of Christ. As it reaches 20 or 15 functions, it is now obedient to we who created it, for it can no longer hear a clear connection to the allness of Creator where the soul origin dwells from. But what it can do is access original creation. And such a cyborg, if we said, okay, we in our disconnectivity, our lack of unity with Creator and the love and peace it brings us, in that voided state, we must explore every possible avenue of creation to try and work out how we are to get ourselves free of this devoid, disconnected state that we are in, this state of rebellion, our persistent necessity to mimic and be a creator God ourselves. We may say, well, this set of androids, we need them to create from original inspiration, but we need it to be fueled by fear. So you keep them at 20, you program them with these programs of fear, you keep them in an environment of programs of fear, and suddenly you have the original inspiration of God trapped in a technology that is creating weapons and so on and so forth that the species who created the android could not have invented or created. For they are not able anymore to create from original inspiration, but this harnessed, forgotten, amnesic soul is able. And with the right programming, the android will be able to create things that are fear-based. Humanity is in a scenario, if you look at it, and you could not deny this as a hypothesis and a potentiality of exactly what Christianity was telling you, that we have been placed in such a scenario. And I say this as one who has watched the activation of what I am calling the 100 functions of Christ take place in the life of the organism sitting here speaking. I have seen the organism function in a restricted bandwidth of reality, in a restricted perspective of reality, where anything outside of there appeared to be supernatural and had to be believed or disbelieved. However, in now, this current time, the organism can say that which in historical memory would be potentially supernatural to be believed or disbelieved has become a normality in the life of the awareness of the organism. And this happened as it was stuck at 15 functions, and it was not self-exploring to awaken the other functions. The causality of non-self-exploration was a multitude of elements: worldly entertainment, keeping the awareness externalized and outside of itself. It was due to the disposition of the body's ability to not have control over the awareness and the mind, and therefore be connected to the pleasures of the flesh, as it were. It was due to the firewall of arrogance. Having been educated and told, this is how a human works, this is how the world works, you live your life. And you live your life and you see the world through that perception window, through that limited set of awareness paradigms that you were given as a child through education. And the firewall of human arrogance says, I know how a human functions. And if that firewall stays until you're 50, 40 years old, the firewall is all the more arrogant, all the more stronger, and will say, this is mumbo jumbo. Why would I go within and try to unlock supernatural powers when I've lived 40 years and seen no sign of them? Because the 100 functions of Christ were diminished. And as they were diminished within inside this non-base reality, program codes, or the demonic, you can call it, viruses, were planted in the spot where you would animate and awaken those functions into full awareness. Full awareness is spiritual rebirth, as Christ called it. It is the Christic man. It is man walking in the power of Christ. Therefore, the 100 functions have been atrophied. And when we go against the paradigms of base reality, when we say no to the call of the organism for food, the call of the organism persistently for sex, the call of the organism persistently for entertainment and external pleasure, when we go against that and we say no, I retain the vitality and awareness to go inward, to seek the entrapped soul element of what I am, which is becoming amnesic in this non-base reality world, the fallen world, and I am going to awaken that power, that energy. I'm going to grow that energy within me. It begins to switch on the functions. The year that the organism sitting here has had has been colossal. I have gone through a tremendously strange set of events. People trying to harm me, trying to kill me. I have had people trying to steal from me, trying to steal the organization from us. I have people trying to take the story away of the development of the village even and own it as their own. I have had false arrests. I have had somebody recently be prosecuted for trying to frame me, but I was arrested with a police roadblock for this, and so on and so forth, all trying to bring God's love alone into a corner of the world where it's desperately needed. The chaos has been immense, and the movement from awareness into self has been colossal. In that space, I was growing disconnected from the 100 functions of Christ, and I do not stand here saying I had all 100 functions. But I do say I was living in the 70 or the 80 range. I was seeing the supernatural beyond the veil. I was driving out entities. I was casting out demons. I was watching phenomenal manifestations take place. I have seen miraculous healings, all of the supernatural things that occur when the code-changing capacities of humanity are born. The code of reality, the program code, the code changes are those who open the 100 functions of Christ over a certain level. I had become trapped at a certain level, and in my battle with the world to maintain all that we are maintaining, the space to reclaim the 100 functions had been blocked and locked by demonic viruses and programs and spirit. We can say spirits. The blockages I had gotten into a space where I felt I had no time to isolate, fast and pray as I continued fighting. And therefore, in the last week, the most humble of servants to our Creator, a school teacher who I've never met from this country, appeared full of the Holy Spirit and prayed over the organism sitting here, and I felt that the 100 functions that had been restricted to 30, let's say, just for an image so you can get this visual, that the 70 above that were all filled with these demonic viruses and firewalls and strongholds were deleted one by one and wiped out. And as they were, my functions began to reactivate, and my light began to reactivate, and my awareness began to become more potent and clear and connected to the living God. And this came from a school teacher who nobody knows, who is a humble woman, but is devoted to God. And since she has started praying with me, she too has had new supernatural manifestations in her life that she has never seen in her entirety of her years on earth. This is something in the life of this organism historically I have done for others. I have been brought forward full of the attunement to the 100 functions of Christ, having many of them switched on, and pushed those demonic blockages out of the functions of people that were locked, to awaken them into their higher functionality, peace, joy, and spiritual capacities and abilities. But I have never had anyone come into my own life and do it so quickly and directly as this. I laughed in hysterics like a madman the first time afterwards this lady prayed for me, and I couldn't stop. Such was the relief that these blockages were gone. So these 100 functions, they are not a literal linear journey, and I know many with the linear mind you will want to know. Name them one by one. It is a spectrum, and there's probably a million functions you could say, but it's a spectrum of how full of the Spirit of Christ, the connection to the living God, are you, or how atrophied are those connections to the living God. And of course, as I said, for the soul to enter the vessel, all 100 must be switched on, but we are children. We can't speak, we can't walk. They are of little use. But when you gaze into a child's eyes, you know that you're looking at something holy and pure, and the awareness gazing back at you with its giggling, faith-filled joy, complete faith in its giggle, no idea what's going on. You know that the purity of life is here, the purity of soul is here. Yeshua said, unless you become as children, you may not enter the kingdom. You must navigate yourself to the point where the 100 functions are awake. And so you say now, how? Where are these 100 functions? How do we awaken them? How do we reconnect to that capacity as a human being? How do we reawaken? And the answer comes when, if I use an analogy, if you uproot a tree from planet Earth and it runs around on top of the soil, in time the tree will be amnesic that it was one with the soil. It was one with the nutrients, with the earth. It was one with the forest and all around it. And it has run around so much, and all of a sudden you put a sheet of glass between it and the soil. So now it can see that there's a way to connect, but it can't get there, for its roots cannot pass through the glass to reconnect to the earth and the oneness with its creator. You are the uprooted tree, and the fallen nature is the mind of man that has uprooted us. And enlightenment, spiritual rebirth and awakening is the overcoming of the mind, the removal of the glass sheet that is stopping you from reconnecting, and allowing the awareness that you are to root back with earth, to root back with Christ. The tree will run forever on top of the glass amnesic. It'll forget. It'll be like a madman. Humanity is filled with madmen. Society is driven by a lot of madness. You can see it. You can see the way that we are. And it is because our awareness is uprooted. And that which is uprooted it is a persistent, endless layer of thought and analysis. If mankind wants to dock itself into the station where one by one those lights of the 100 functions of Christ can awaken, and the powers of spirit can be born through the organism, so that the organism can begin to live that life which is supernatural. If you're going to church, wonderful. But if you are not in the presence of a supernatural life, you have to switch on these blocked functions. And if you are not blessed enough to have people who are largely awakened into all of the functions come in and push them out for you, it is because you must learn through trial. You must learn through the difficulty of fasting and prayer and awareness, intense awareness, I can say, but yet relaxed. But an intense understanding that awareness is going to set you free. What I am speaking of is this: God so guides the humble. How do we describe humility? What is humility? A man who is humble is what? He is here before all of creation. He has eliminated his own thinking, his own desires, his own will. And he is saying to all of creation, I await the creator of it all to determine the direction by which the expression of this shape and form should take. This is it. To be there, one must be in a space of persistent, loving awareness. It sounds docile, it sounds lazy, but it is the true power of man. It is that man that is feared by the enemy above all. For the man who accesses there, however fleeting or however prolonged, will understand that he is accessing the power of the all-knowingness of God. The longer a man stays there, his roots will connect with the Christic dimension. And as it is said, in this non-base reality, where the Son of God came to save mankind, where the Creator of all things said, look what sentient life has done in that corner of my space, in that corner of the gift of infinite potential that I have created. Look at the suffering that they are causing and breeding in these beings, and look at the souls that they are capturing from our dimension with technology and bringing to there. Let me send one who is pure to open a path to bring them free, knowing fine well that the God of this world, Satan, will not tolerate that being, and that being will suffer immensely, will suffer in an attempt to make it forget its origin and its mission. And here we have the story of Yeshua encapsulated in what is partly historical, partly clearly, as I've mentioned before, a mystic text to try and lead you to a truth that many of humanity are not ready for. That path is open, a program code. The code breakers are here. And Yeshua left the path between the Christic realm and this non-base reality dimension in which we are incarnating, and said it himself that greater works than he you will do, for he will have gone to the Father. But you will not do them unless you switch on your 100 functions of Christ. And you will not switch them on unless you let go of your firewall of arrogance, unless you stop letting the world pull your awareness outward into the pleasures of the world, and unless you bring all of that energy inward to begin unblocking the viruses and the demons of this fallen reality that are stopping those functions from awakening. For your functions are blocked to keep you in servitude, to keep you as part of a mechanism that creates on behalf of these beings that which they cannot create. For original creation is something that they have lost connection with, and therefore they must find ways to harness original creation, which is done so in dastardly, horrific ways, such as dragging souls into bodies that are limited in their connection to Creator, and keeping them amnesic, programming them with fear, and having them use the gift of original creation to create from these states of fear or these states of lack that they are inducing upon them. All in the hope of continuing to expand their rebellion, to be a creator God. But they will never be all-knowing. But you, unlike they, You have a direct line to the all-knowing. And they are jealous of that. They are jealous. These fallen creator gods, they are jealous of you. For they understand the power that you hold. They understand the vibrance of love that you can connect to due to your mortality. They understand the vibrance of love you can have as you unify with the source of all love. They just have artificial versions and stimulus. They can only try and feed on the scraps of it when they take beings that have that love and drag them into the pit of suffering that they drag many of us into, so they can get a brief taste and glimpse of a memory that they had before they rebelled. But they are too arrogant now to unify, and so continue the road of rebellion blindly. And as they said to me, when I met 5 fallen angels, and I said, "Why do you do it to us?" They said, "To us, it's like you driving your car and splatting bugs on the front. Do you ever think and stop and apologize, or were they just in the way of what is an organic journey?" To them, that's how they perceive us. But to Christ, our Saviour, this is not how it's perceived. And that is why this suffering must come to a close, and will only come to a close when we as a species understand we are here to liberate ourselves from the bondage of the lessened functions of Christ that we have been brought into through genetic manipulation and false education and the firewall of arrogance that the human ego so predominantly parades across the story of humanity. The 100 functions of Christ are awakened, where the image of a personal self and all of the identities that it can boast about or be tangled in is not. It is in the space between thought, where you don't have to do anything. There's no linear process for you. You, the animation of the image of you, is the animation of thought. And that takes you away from the docking station where the 100 functions awaken. It is without thought that the functions awaken. And when they are, you find yourself united with the Holy Spirit, the living God, and your powers become supernatural to a historical version of yourself, but you recognize they never were. They are simply the ability for the human to call on all of the energy of this earth and the creator of this cosmos underneath the non-base reality overlay and bring forth that energy and become a code changer, to rewrite the codes of reality. This is the 100 functions of Christ, and I am certain that we are a biological android who has the capacity to reactivate all of them. I shall leave it there. I hope this message brings you to peace, for it's the only intention. God bless, guys. I love you all. Bye.